morning. I'm Dr. S.P. Tiwari. Today I'm going to discuss GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. So our objectives are definition of GERD, epidemiology of GERD, pathophysiology of GERD, clinical manifestations, diagnostic evaluation, treatment and complications. Regarding definition, symptoms are mucosal damage produced by the abnormal reflux of gastric contents into the esophagus, often chronic and relapsing. May see complications of GERD in patients who lack typical symptoms. This GERD can be physiological and pathological. Physiological GERD, it is usually postprandial, short-lived, asymptomatic and no nocturnal symptoms. While in pathological, its symptoms are due to mucosal injury and it may remain in nocturnal also. So it may be daytime also and nocturnal also, while physiological is only in daytime and not nocturnal. Regarding epidemiology, GERD occurs in all ages, but most common to those older than 40 years of age. About 10 to 20% of people in Western countries suffer from GERD symptoms on a weekly basis. About 7% have symptoms daily. Except for non-erosive reflux disease and pregnancy, no much difference in incidence between men and women. But for Barrett's esophagus, prevalence is more in males, particularly white adult males. Now, pathophysiology of GERD. Main important cause of this GERD is decreased lower esophageal sphincter pressure. Primary barrier is for gastroesophageal reflux is lower esophageal sphincter. If sphincter is normally works in conjunction with the diaphragm, if barrier is disturbed, acid goes from stomach to esophagus. Now this thing can be due to spontaneous transient LES relaxation or due to transient increase in intra-abdominal pressure, or also may be due to atonic lower esophageal sphincter. Another cause is disruption of anatomical barriers. If it is associated with hiatal hernia, the size of hiatus hernia is proportional to the frequency of LES relaxation. Hypotensive LES pressures and large hiatal hernia, there are more chances of GERD following abrupt increase in intra-abdominal pressure. So bigger is the hiatus hernia, more chances of GERD. Then third is esophageal clearance. GI acid produced spend too much time in contact with the esophageal mucosa. If food remains stagnant in esophagus along with acid, then there will be more chances of GERD. Normally, swallowing contributes to esophageal clearance due to increasing salivary flow. If saliva decreases with increasing age, so more often seen in elderly, it may cause stagnation of the food particles and leading to GERD. Another mechanism is mucosal resistance. The mucus secreted by the mucosa involves in the protection of esophagus. The bicarbonate moving from the blood to the lumen can neutralize acidic reflux in the esophagus. On repeated exposure to the refluxate or due to some defect in normal mucosal system, hydrogen ion diffuse into the mucosa leading to cellular acidification and necrosis leading to esophagitis. Another cause is delayed gastric emptying. If gastric emptying is delayed due to any reason, then frequency of reflux and the amount of gastric fluid available to be reflexed is increased. That's why physiological postprandial gastroesophageal reflex occurs. Here in this diagram you can see various mechanisms starting from esophagus, mucus secretions, then relaxation of sphincter, lower esophageal sphincter, then hiatus hernia, delayed gastric emptying, etc. So in pathogenesis, amount of esophageal damage seen dependent on composition of reflex material, volume of reflex material, length of contact time, natural sensitivity of esophageal mucosa, and rate of gastric emptying. Various complications of GERD are: number one, esophagitis itself, then esophageal strictures, ulcers, hemorrhage, perforation, aspiration of gastric contents, then development of Barrett's esophagus, and precipitation of an asthma attack. These are various complications which can occur with GERD. Erosive esophagitis, most common complications. It is a condition in which areas of the esophageal lining are inflamed and ulcerated. Most common cause of erosive gastritis is chronic acid reflux. It is responsible for 40-60% of GERD symptoms. Severity of symptoms often fail to match severity of erosive esophagitis. Another complication is esophageal stricture formation. It is narrowing of esophagus. It may need dilatation. It is common in the distal esophagus and are generally 1 to 2 cm in length. Next complication is Barrett's esophagus. What happens? Acid damages lining of esophagus and causes chronic esophagitis. This damaged area leads to metaplastic process and abnormal columnar cells replace earlier equimous cells. And this metaplasia can progress to dysplasia and leads to development of adenocarcinoma. So it is precancerous stage Barrett's esophagus which can transform into malignancy. We must be very careful for that, and that's why it must be treated as early as possible so as to prevent transformation into cancer. Another complication may be exacerbation of bronchial asthma. This GERD can lead to the reflex of fluid into the lungs. This can result in choking, coughing, or even pneumonia. In some patients, reflux may worsen asthmatic symptoms. Coming on to clinical manifestations, these symptoms may be aggravated by activities that worsen gastroesophageal reflux, such as recumbent position, bending over, or eating a meal high in fat. So these things can aggravate. Now main symptom is heartburn, that is retrosternal burning, discomfort behind the retrosternum, behind the sternum. Then regurgitation, spitting of food, effortless return of gastric content into the pharynx without nausea, retching and abdominal contraction. Then third thing, water brushing, hypersalivation, many times belching. So these are various symptoms, typical symptoms which are suggestive of GERD. We can have some atypical symptoms also. In some cases, these extraesophageal symptoms are the only symptoms present, making it more difficult to recognize GERD as the cause, especially when endoscopic studies are normal. These may be non-allergic asthma, hoarseness, pharyngitis, chest pain, dental erosions, and cough. There are certain alarming symptoms which are indicative of complications of GERD, such as Barrett's esophagus, esophageal strictures, or esophageal cancers. These are dysphagia, difficulty in swallowing, early satiety, GI bleeding, then adenophagia, painful swallowing, vomiting, repeated vomiting, unexplained weight loss, iron deficiency anemia, choking sensation, and continuous pain over external region. Various investigations which can be done are barium shallow, endoscopy, ambulatory pH monitoring, acid perfusion, Bernstein test, and esophageal manometry. These are various investigations which are carried out for diagnosis of GERD and its complications. When to do endoscopy? So endoscopy is indicated in if symptoms are very alarming, if there is hematemesis, for preoperative evaluation, if drug resistance is there, therapy failure is there, and also for detection of Barrett's esophagus, whether there are chances of malignancy or not. Barium swallow is done for stricture of esophagus and for mass location of stricture, hiatus hernia. In these cases, barium swallow is indicated. These are the warning signs. If they are present, consider an endoscopy. These are dysphagia, bleeding, unexplained weight loss, choking sensation, and severe chest pain, severe persistent chest pain. Endoscopy which is done is EGD, esophagogastroduodenoscopy. This is a procedure in which a thin scope with light and camera is used to look inside the upper digestive tract, the esophagus, stomach, and first part of the small intestine called the duodenum. Absence of endoscopic features does not exclude GERD diagnosis. It allows for detection, stratification, and management of esophageal manifestation or complications of GERD. pH measurement is another study in which a 24-hour pH study is often done in conjunction with the esophageal manometry to monitor the levels and changes in acid content in the esophagus over a 24-hour period. By this we can ascertain whether acidic media is there or not, acidic, alkaline, and which time of day this pH is changing. By that we can conclude about the. In this monitoring you can easily differentiate between normal and pH picture of GERD, in which acidic picture is visible, clearly visible. This is another test which is known as acid perfusion test or Bernstein test, in which dilute hydrochloric acid is pushed through esophagus and onset of symptom is judged. If sudden severe chest pain arises after giving diluted HCl, then it is suggestive of GERD. In this test, rice tube is passed in and through it from one side of the nose and into esophagus, and through it diluted hydrochloric acid is pushed in a small amount, and then severity of pain is judged. If severity of pain increases, then it is suggestive of GERD. Next test is esophageal manometry. It has got very limited role in GERD, and it assesses LES pressure and relaxation phase, and also assess peristalsis prior to surgery. If classical symptoms like heartburn, regurgitation, water wasting exist in the absence of alarming symptoms, the diagnosis of GERD can be made clinically and treatment can be initiated. If we have to treat this GERD, we have two options: H2 receptor antagonist or PPI, proton pump inhibitors. We should see response for 2 to 4 weeks. If no response, then we can change from H2RA to PPI, and give maximum dose of PPI for best response. If PPI response inadequate despite maximal dose, then again confirm diagnosis by EGD and 24-hour pH monitoring. regarding goal of therapy, that is for alleviate or eliminate the patient's symptoms, decrease the frequency or recurrence and duration of gastroesophageal reflux, promote healing of the injured mucosa and prevents the development of complications like Barrett's esophagus, esophageal stricture, etc. Antacids are found to be very effective in treatment of GERD. Alginic acid derivatives containing antacids, sucral fat containing sucral fat plus xylocaine containing antacids, they all are found to be very effective. Apart from that, magnesium hydroxide, calcium carbonate, soda bicarb, they are also found to be effective. They can be given 3 to 4 times daily for 1 to 2 months. Apart from antacids, H2 receptor antagonist is main cornerstone of therapy in GERD. H2 receptor antagonist and PPI both are very effective. H2 receptor antagonists, they competitively block the histamine receptor of the gastric peristalsis, thereby preventing secretions. They are more effective than antacid for relieving heartburn, faster healing of erosive esophagitis. They can use regularly or can be used in demand. Various H2 receptor antagonists are cimetidine, ranitidine, roxetidine. Then apart from that, PPI are better drugs for treatment of GERD. They are effective not only with patients having erosive esophagitis or complications like Barrett's esophagus, but also with non-erosive GERD and have moderate to severe symptoms. They act by depressing the basal and stimulated gastric acid secretion through inhibition of the final step of acid secretion. Better control of symptoms with PPI in comparison to H2 receptor antagonist, and faster healing of erosive esophagitis.